It is time for a brand new Bum to Billionaire episode, and last time I grinded the absolute heck out of vehicle cargo, making millions of dollars in the process, and I loved every second of it. But this time for Bum to Billionaire episode 9, we're putting aside the Grand Theft Auto for a while, and instead we're gonna do what Vin Diesel did with Fast and Furious. Turn it into a heist simulator with giant military aircraft, rocket-powered cars, and mid-air fighter plane duels. We also haven't gone into space yet, but we're gonna save that for later. Maybe with GTA 6 Online when Rockstar finally gives us our very own space station. Right now though, while we're on the topic of heists, I've got one of the most underrated heists in the game, and that's the Oscar Guzman Flies Again storyline. This was introduced very recently, March of 2025 in fact, and unlike Cluckin Bell or KnoWay Out, this is a proper heist by the very definition of the term, because we do end up stealing a very expensive Titan 250D from Eberhard Munitions while blowing up a bunch of their hardware in the process, and it's all very exciting, and you too can unlock this series of missions simply by purchasing your very own McKenzie field hangar for $1,475,000, which is what I'm gonna do now, and sold. Now, this isn't the most profitable business in the game. In fact, it's not a business directly at all. It's more like an extension for your hangar more or less, but think of it like in a mobile version of the Kazatka. You buy it just to unlock a heist, and in our case, the heist actually pays very well. It is the third highest paying solo heist after Kaio and the Dr. Dre contract, because even KnoWay Out on hard mode with the Elite Challenge pays just $625,000, while Oscar Guzman on hard mode pays approximately $750,000. So I would go so far as to call this a tier 1 heist on the level of Kaio and Dr. Dre. Naturally, since this is a public lobby, the very first thing I hear after walking out of my property is a bunch of explosions in the distance. And while flying towards my freshly purchased McKenzie field hangar, I came across this traffic pileup on the freeway. It looked quite interesting, but I didn't want to hang around for long and found out which psychopath in the lobby caused this mess. So I continued flying towards the hangar, and over there, I was introduced to Mr. Oscar Guzman, who we know from GTA 5 story mode, where he appears in the missions Nervous Run and arms trafficking. Now that Trevor is gone, the McKenzie field hangar is laying dormant, with nobody to contest Eberhard Munitions and their stronghold on the international gun running business. Well, nobody except Oscar and me, that is, because we're about to reboot operations over here and put a dent in Eberhard's monopoly by stealing some of their product, which is being delivered via a streamer aircraft. Think of this first mission as the equivalent of slush funds in Cluckin Bell, only this time, instead of breaking into a cash factory and stealing a bunch of fake bills, we're gonna chase down a Los Aztecas aircraft and shoot it in the butt so it pops out some cargo for us. Then we're gonna steal that cargo and hand it over to our client so we can get this gun running business up and running. Get it? Up and running, because that's the name of the mission. Anyway, things start off pretty well when I drive over to this transmission tower that the baddies are using to hide their signal from the government radar. Then I see a cougar chowing down on some simian sushi, so I put a bullet in its skull, and I must have pissed off its family because a second one tried to sneak up on me from behind, but I put it down as well. Then I use some C4 to blow up the tower supports, and what this is going to do is it's going to force the Aztecas to fly really low to stay under the radar, and I'll use that to my advantage by sneaking up on their plane and shooting it with my minigun, like this. My attack did enough damage in 2 seconds to drop 3 out of 4 packages, but the plane flew out of my line of sight, so I had to chase it down into the desert for the last package, where some bad guys tried to shoot at me, but I took care of them, picked up the last package, and delivered the goodies to the buyer for a nice little paycheck. Unfortunately for our clients, right after I handed over the goods, they got turned into a cloud of red mist by a Titan 250D gunship. And yes, this is based on the Lockheed AC-130, specifically the AC-130U Spooky variant. Oscar doesn't know who it is right now, but by the second mission, he figures out that it belongs to Eberhard Munitions.
So I did some digging. That plane is the Titan 250D, brand new. Belongs to some weapon manufacturer called Eberhard Munitions,
one of the largest players in the gun running industry and a major weapons manufacturer. And since they're one of our main rivals, we're gonna give them a bit of a kick in the sack by stealing their prized possession, the very same Titan 250D that they use to vaporize our clients. But in order to hijack the Titan 250D, we're gonna need a way to catch it mid-flight, because breaking into a fortified Eberhard base would be stupid, and if we want to catch the Titan mid-flight, we'll have to sneak up on it without getting blasted out of the sky by escorts, and the only way to do so is by stealing one of Eberhard's own aircraft. Specifically this Mogul right here, which is just chilling on a random airstrip out in the middle of nowhere. So I fly over there in my Vellum, but I'll have to fly out with the Mogul, and with my brain still intact inside my skull because these guards seem pretty hell-bent on murdering the crap out of me. Thankfully, there's plenty of cover for me to hide behind while I clear out the rabble, but there's a much better way of doing this mission, and I'll show it to you guys during my second run of Oscar Guzman. Right now though, we're taking the aggressive approach, and after cleaning out most of the base, I got into the Silver Mogul only to discover that Eberhard sent a few fighter jets after me. These guys don't mind blowing up their own hardware to kill a thief, which is why they're shooting homing missiles at me. And funny enough, I was able to dodge most of the missiles by pulling a few turns, but I just couldn't dodge this hill. After that embarrassing display, I eliminated myself and respawned back at the airstrip for round 2. This time, I successfully dodged everything and led the bandits straight to Oscar, who was camping on the airfield with a homing launcher, and his AI sucks, so he only killed 1 aircraft and stopped caring after that, so I had to turn around with my machine guns and take out the last 2. Yeah, fuck you too, Oscar. You're absolutely useless. Then, for some payback, I used the Mogul's bombs to take out a bunch of Eberhard bases, which should piss them off even further. For the third mission, we're about to swim with the sharks, underwater, in the ocean, and the objective here is to recover an Eberhard signal jammer that was being transported on a tugboat, but the boat was blown up and it's now laying on the ocean floor. But before we can grab our free signal jammer and use it to steal that Titan, we need a few bits of data first, like the flight plans for the Titan 250D, which will allow Oscar to craft a precise course of action for when and where to intercept this giant aircraft. Oscar sends me to a drone station where I pilot a little shock drone and steal some data from Eberhard servers while zapping any guard who came a little bit too close. The data theft is honestly the easiest part of this mission because the next phase involves going to an enemy field camp and borrowing one of their dinghies. So after making my way through a hailstorm of gunfire, I grabbed the boat, got into the yellow search zone, and started looking for missing cargo. Annoying because you have to find 4 of these and the location gets slightly randomized with each playthrough, so it might take you a little while before you grab all 4, and you're definitely going to need rebreathers or a scuba suit for this one. The main areas you want to check are the weeds over here, this tugboat, this cargo container, and these pipes. After collecting all 4 pieces of the puzzle, I swam back up to the surface, got back into my boat, hit the shore, and drove out of there in my armored Kuruma. With the jammer delivered, it's now time for mission 4 of the Oscar Guzman questline, and in this, we're about to secure an Iron Mule helicopter. This is like a cargo bob, only bigger, stronger, more heavily armored, and faster. And to get one of these, we're going to invade an Eberhard munitions weapon testing site and plant a bunch of signal jammers around the place. Then once Eberhard sends their reinforcements, we'll jam their flight systems, grab an Iron Mule, and fly away. This is probably the one mission with the most amount of fighting in this entire questline, but if you have an armored Kuruma or a Duke of Death, it's a total piece of cake and you can just drive to the objective, get out, plant your jammer, and drive away. The second phase has a destruction meter, similar to the Country Club finale in the Dr. Dre VIP contract if you're familiar, and you have to blow up a bunch of Eberhard stuff before they send their reinforcements, but if you have a minigun, it's actually quite easy. Target those parked vehicles, helicopters, weapon crates, fuel tanks, anything that blows up to be honest, and you'll fill up the destruction meter in no time. Once Eberhard sends in their Iron Mules, get back in your vehicle, camp right in the middle of the helicopters as they land, and activate the jammer to prevent them from flying away. Ignore the insurgent, by the way. You don't need to grab one, even though the game suggests that you do, and you also don't need more than 1 Iron Mule either, even though Oscar Guzman suggests getting a second one as well. If you're watching this video, you're probably playing solo, and if you're solo, 1 Iron Mule is going to be plenty. Mission 5 is where we actually get to use our stolen Iron Mule by using its cargo hook to grab some containers off of a ship. And these containers have ammunition for the Titan 250D's gun, and we're going to need exactly 1 crate to pass the mission, but you also have additional objectives that you can do, and these will make the finale slightly easier. While you bring in your loot with the Iron Mule, you have a timer during which requests for backup are blocked, and once that timer expires, you'll be hit by enemy fire, and it's going to make the mission a lot more tedious, which is why most people don't bother with the extras like Mogul upgrades or heavy armor. Now we're ready for the big showdown. Mission 6, aka the Titan job, and as you can guess from the name, we're about to steal one of those giant planes and sell it off to our buyer, but first we'll have to go through an extremely boring sequence where Oscar pilots the Mogul, and your job is to fix your crosshair on the Titan and shoot at it until it starts smoking. No joke. That's literally all you do for the next 5 minutes straight, and even though Eberhard will send submarine-launched missiles and aircraft after you, your Mogul has plenty of health for this mission, so you can safely ignore them and keep firing at the Titan until you see this cutscene, and that's when the Titan crew will send out the Mayday call and land at the Gran Sonora airstrip. From there, you simply parachute down, like this, request your armored Kuruma or vehicle of choice, and mow down all the Eberhard security trying to protect the Titan. Once the coast looks slightly clear, step out, fix the engines by pressing whatever button the game tells you to press, and that's when Oscar is going to fly in with the Iron Mule and a crate full of ammo, the same one that we stole earlier from the ship. You'll now have a new wave of bad guys, so kill some of them, and once nobody's nearby, start shoving the ammo into the Titan ammo stowage. If you're taking damage, back out of the animation and deal with the enemies first, then keep going until that progress bar fills all the way up. Once the Titan is ready to go, get inside, take off, and start massacring Eberhard's assets all around the map. First, you'll hit this MOC convoy on the road, then after that, you'll take out a submarine that was shooting all those missiles at the very start of the mission, and lastly, you'll blow up a bunch of battle tanks that are being transported via train. This is definitely the hardest part of the Titan job finale. I mean, I'm being serious here, the gunfights are so much easier, and that's because the Titan 250D's weapon engagement range absolutely sucks. Unless you're flying a few hundred feet away from your target, it's really hard to hit stuff. And you also have to fly really low while avoiding all the telephone poles, trees, and hills. So this requires some practice because once you jump into the gun camera, you have no idea of what's going on in front of the plane. So unless you already dialed in your altitude and bearing at the start, you'll have to go back around and come back for a second gun run. The good news is it only takes 2 or 3 playthroughs of this mission to get an overall feel for the Titan's handling and optimal engagement range for these gunfights, so you can easily do the finale in under 15 minutes after that if you want to grind. And on my first playthrough on this account, I made $500,000 from the heist along with a $250,000 bonus. This is exactly $750K for not much more than an hour of gameplay, which is decent, but I know it can be done even faster. And now that we've unlocked hard mode, we can get $750,000 just as the base payout from each playthrough of Oscar Guzman. But in order to speedrun this heist the proper way, we're gonna need a few more things. First, a Vigilante as our personal vehicle, armed with homing missiles, and because you can't get homing missiles on the Vigilante at LS Customs, we'll also buy an MOC for our bunker and outfit it with weapons and the vehicle workshop combo that's gonna take up both bays 2 and 3. For bay number 1, I chose the command center, which allows me to play mobile operations missions, and Rockstar recently stated in the newswire that they're gonna buff these payouts for these, so maybe I'll feature them in a different Bum to Billionaire episode when those changes take effect. And because of that, maybe you guys should subscribe if you want to see that episode. Right now though, we're interested in upgrading the Vigilante, and you do it by driving up to your MOC and parking your car in the trailer where the mechanic is gonna work his magic and install some new equipment. After maxing out the performance on my Vigilante, I decided it was time to do a little test drive, and there's no better place for that than the modern hellscape that is the GTA Online free roam public session. I mean, we've got a giant $4 million rocket-powered Batmobile with tier 1 homing missiles and bullet-resistant glass, so might as well test it out against some players. Otherwise, what's even the point of owning this thing? And so I headed out into the wilderness, armed with my insanely fast rocket car, and my very first victim was the signal jammer right here. Yeah, take that, you stupid router. Then I created a little traffic pileup and blasted the whole thing away with my rocket boost, which was quite fun. I still haven't run into a single player though, which is why it's time to head into the heart of Los Santos and find someone to test these missiles on. Eventually, I did find someone, but he was in a Virtue, and it took forever for me to take him out, even though he was AFK the entire time, which shows you just how strong Imani Tech vehicles are against griefers with homing missiles. Then I came across a more vulnerable target, and this guy was in an armored Kuruma, which, as you all know, blows up to just 1 homing missile. Just like that, and there's a reason you shouldn't drive around in a public lobby with an armored Kuruma, because you never know when some other asshole in a Vigilante is gonna roll up on you and turn your vehicle into a flaming wreck. Shortly afterwards, the very same guy who I'd wrecked earlier came back for revenge, and this time he wasn't AFK, so all it took was 1 sticky bomb and I was dead, because my Vigilante has the exact same explosive resistance as an armored Kuruma, which is to say, 0. So now we get into this back and forth, and he brought out a Toreador, which was cheating, so I pulled out my Mark II and ran him down with my missiles. Then as I was chasing him, he ran into an NPC car and died. After that, I pulled out my Virtue and I gave him the old sticky bomb to the face. And then I ran him over while he was standing next to this light post. After a bit of interference from other players, I got right back on his butt and gave him another sticky present. Then a fan greeted me on the streets, and I got another sticky kill on my nemesis, but he also killed me at the same time with his minigun, and this was a pretty cool moment overall. Then the guy brought his Toreador back, once again, but none of his missiles were landing while he chased me around in circles like a dog chasing its own tail. Soon, I ended his life with some sticky bombs, and it shows that in a Toreador versus Virtue fight, the Virtue always wins, by quite a large margin actually. Banyam decided to try the Oppressor Mark II next. I don't know why he thought it was a good idea when the Toreador clearly failed, but he suffered the consequences of his decisions very soon. By the way, Banyam, if you're watching this video, try googling what a missile lock-on jammer is, because it's really going to help you out the next time you're in a public lobby. But after this, we went back and forth a few more times. I got into more PvP shenanigans in a different lobby with my MOC cab, and then I decided that I should probably go back to doing the Oscar Guzman heist, since it's now been 48 minutes, and the heist should be off cooldown at this point. But now for the proper technique. We're gonna need to make a few changes before we begin. So first, I'll save a scuba suit to one of my outfit slots. Then I'll equip the HSW Hakuchou Drag as my personal vehicle. Ideally, I'd have also wanted a railgun or explosive ammo on my heavy sniper, but I don't have the bunker research for the explosive ammo on this new account for the series, and the railgun isn't in stock at the gun band. So even though I'm not where I'd like to be, I think we can still do our speedrun with the HSW Hakuchou Drag, the Vigilante, and the scuba suit that we prepared earlier. So if you guys are ready, Here's how it goes. First, during the up and running mission, don't drive all the way to the mountaintop to sabotage the tower. Instead, park your Hakucho drag over here on this hill, take out your heavy sniper and start shooting at the foundation. It'll take a while if you have regular ammo, but it's still a lot faster than driving to the default waypoint. Then once the streamer comes into vision, hit it hard with a heavy revolver and collect your crates by driving over them with your Hakucho drag. Ideally here, you'd want FMJ ammo in the heavy revolver to drop the crates much faster, but once again, I don't have the research for that on this new account, so we'll just have to make do with the normal stuff and veer off into the desert for a bit. I did this once on an alt account with the FMJ ammo, and I was able to drop all 4 crates on the highway itself. This time it was slower, but I still made it back to the buyer pretty fast by taking a shortcut and riding my drag over some mountains, which it absolutely is not designed for, of course, but since there's so much power behind those wheels, it doesn't really matter as long as you don't crash. So that's the first mission done. Now it's time to steal the Mogul in mission 2. If you remember, on my first playthrough, I went full aggro on the base, but this time I'm doing things the smart way. So I'm gonna land my Vellum right next to the base like this, get off, kill the 3 maintenance guys next to the Mogul with a silenced weapon, and we're done. No need to fight the entire base. Just hop in, silent and sneaky style, and fly away. For this next part, there isn't much you can do other than lead the Eberhard jets to Oscar and pray that his AI doesn't spaz out. And his AI glitched out on me again. Damn it, Oscar, you had one job. I mean, seriously. So after killing the enemy aircraft myself and destroying the Eberhard bases with the Mogul bombs, I moved on to mission 3, where once again, I'm gonna steal the intel with my mini drone and dive into the ocean to collect that cargo. But this time, I've got an HSW Hakucho drag instead of an armored Kuruma, which is gonna cut down my travel time significantly. Also, remember that scuba outfit we saved earlier? Well, here's how to equip it. Make sure it's on before you begin the mission from the laptop because you can't switch outfits mid-mission. So that's what I did. Then once I arrived at the enemy outpost, I hopped on the Sea Shark, got to the yellow search zone, and began my search from top left side of the circle. If you start there, you'll land right next to one of the spawn points for the cargo, which is hidden inside the seaweeds right here. Then you check out this container, this tugboat, and the area next to these pipes. On your way up, what you need to do is try to get eaten by the sharks, so you die and respawn right at the table. Or you could fight the shark and waste time driving back to the shore like me. But you see, I didn't want to waste too much time, so instead of following the GPS, I took my own path through this irrigation channel, and you get here by driving out of the enemy outpost, hugging the hills to your right, and then just keep following them until you arrive at this overhead bridge. Then go left of this tree and right between these 2 pillars and follow the blue water line straight back to the airfield to complete the mission. This path is much faster than taking the road. And for the Iron Mule mission, we're once again going to use our HSW Hakucho drag, but before heading inside, kill this insurgent gunner by parking your bike above this hill. If you don't kill him first, he's going to cause a lot of problems once you're in the base. I planted the jammers as usual, and because I don't have a railgun, I'm going to make up for it with a minigun and grenade launcher. This is still a fast way to destroy Eberhard's stuff, but not as fast as using a railgun. I also did something different for Mission 5 this time, and instead of just hauling away the Titan 250D ammo and calling it a day, I decided to go back for the Mogul upgrades, and even though this is going to increase my mission time overall, it is going to decrease the time I spend in the finale, shooting down that dang Titan, because now we'll have 2 machine guns on the Mogul turret, and we could take it down twice as fast. Just one more thing to remember before you start the finale, and that's setting your Vigilante as your personal vehicle before you do the mission. Then, start the mission as usual, gun down the Titan with your upgraded machine guns. It's still going to take you 3 minutes, but that is faster than normal. And after that, as soon as you see the Mayday cutscene, don't fly all the way to the airfield. It takes time, and we don't want to waste any of that. So jump right out of the plane, crash land with your head, and you'll respawn at the Grand Sonora Desert Airfield. Here, you should find your Vigilante waiting for you as you respawn, but I was an idiot and didn't equip it before starting this mission, so now I have to call up my mechanic, wait for him to send it to me, and run all the way over to the road to collect it. Once I had my Vigilante though, I used its homing missiles to clear out all the enemies in just a few seconds, and I'm completely protected during all this because the rear end is bulletproof and my windows are bullet resistant. So I fixed the engines, loaded up the ammo, and I destroyed the Eberhard MOCs with a couple of well-placed 40mm shots. Then I killed the Eberhard submarine in a single pass with exactly 5 shots, and then headed for the train. You should always approach the train from behind and catch it near these wind turbines right here. Fly alongside the right flank and stay low, but not too low, or otherwise you're gonna run into those high voltage power lines or a random tower. Then go through the targets one by one, stay calm and don't miss your shots, because missing means turning around and making a second pass, and with the Titan, that can add a ton of extra time to the finale. I also have a lot of practice with this part, so I was able to do it in just one try, and it's honestly quite easy if you start in the correct position compared to not. Then I deliberately failed the mission by crashing into the ground, and this spawned me right next to the McKenzie airfield. So 30 seconds later, I was watching the cutscene with Oscar because I was just so close to the finale finish. And would you look at that, $757,000 in our pocket. Now that's what I call a good payday. And remember, under an hour for all this if you follow the technique I showed you. I was a bit slower this time overall since I don't have the railgun or the FMJ ammo like I mentioned in my revolver, but it was still under an hour. Now, you might be wondering here what you should do after completing a round of Oscar Guzman, and I've got just the thing with Cluckin Bell. It only takes 45 to 50 minutes, you can earn $500,000 with it, and by the time it's off cooldown, your next Oscar Guzman Flies Again questline should be ready. I, however, went with KnoWay Out for my next heist because I didn't want to burn myself out on just Oscar Guzman, plus I really like KnoWay Out overall. It's honestly a nice change of pace, and it brought my total to over $1 million before my next Oscar Guzman playthrough, which paid a further $757,000 because I once again did it on hard mode. I then ran a couple more Cluckin Bell farm raids, a few more KnoWay Out heists, and 2 more Oscar Guzman heists the next day. And the ideal 1, 2, 3 rotation for you guys if you're trying to grind these heists is you start with Oscar Guzman, then you do a Cluckin Bell farm raid, and you end the day with a KnoWay Out. That's $1.7 to $1.8 million right there in under 3 hours, easy peasy. I did even more farming for this episode, and it was a lot. So at the end, here's how much cash I have. $12.6 million. I started with $14 million, but I also spent a ton of money this episode. I bought the McKenzie field hangar, the MOC, the Vigilante, and all that brought me down to just $6.3 million. So I've actually gained nearly $6.3 million by grinding Oscar Guzman, KnoWay Out, and Cluckin Bell, with most of that cash coming from Oscar Guzman as it's the highest paying heist out of those 3. Next episode, what we're going to do is launder all this money that we've made, and we're also going to meet the guy who everyone thinks is the big bad villain that we'll have to confront in the last GTA 5 online DLC before GTA 6. So you might want to tune in for that one in just a few days. Don't forget to drop a like on this video if you enjoyed and found it informative. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check me out over on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram, specifically twitch.tv/hazardoushtv for more GTA Online money grinding live streams. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios, amigos.